I have a couple of films this time. Both of them, interestingly enough, are realized with the technique of rotoscoping. For those of you who don't know, rotoscoping basically means shooting something in live action with a real-life actor and then retracing over it in order to give it an animated aesthetic. It was a technique originally conceived by the Fleischer brothers in the late 1910s. It is really that old. Think of it as a direct ancestor to mocap technology. Anyway, the films in question, the first one of which is Tehran, Taboo. As it might suggest, it's a film about the bustling lives of people in the bustling city of fundamentalist Islamic Tehran in the state of Iran. I don't have much to say about it other than it's good, it's well made, and the rotoscoping, for once, does not distract you from the happenings in it. It enhances the reality, the grounded reality of people living in a difficult situation politically and religiously, socially in general, and see how they get around it or live through it. It is also naturally a good excuse to showcase some of the less savory aspects of Iran as a country. And I don't need to punctuate that with any example because you might be already aware of what goes down in Iran. But regardless, it's an interesting film in that sense. The rotoscoping doesn't distract, doesn't detract. As I mentioned, it enhances the reality of it, making it an hyper-reality, if that's even the right way to put it. But nevertheless, it is a stylistically well-thought-out choice that definitely improves the visual experience of it. Now, the second film, now I have a few things more to say about this second one, because it is technically rotoscoped, but only part of it. The Man Who Knew 75 Languages by Anne Magnussen. It was surprisingly, interestingly I should say, it was shot in between Norway, Lithuania, United Kingdom, Romania, Germany. Holy sweet Heineken, that's a lot of countries. Right then, so this is apparently the story of George Sourvine, which was a prodigy linguist in that sense. He is known for going around Europe during the time of the Bismarck Wars, trying to preserve and save the minorities' cultures through preservation of their language, which was being absorbed and disintegrated by the German influence. And it's an inherently interesting subject, especially since it's a subject that most of us are not privy of. But this is really not a good film to introduce that subject and this person to the masses, because it doesn't feel like a proper biopic so much as it feels like the bullet points of a biopic. Guy does that, goes there, and then he goes back, and there isn't much in terms of substance, only just a very mild, poor presentation of a potential substance of a film, so it does not really work. Furthermore, the director of this film, Anne Magnussen, I think she was a documentarist filmmaker before this, and this is supposed to be her first animated film that's also a biopic in that sense. And it shows. The animation, or sometimes lack thereof, isn't really good. The rotoscoping is existing. I guess that's the best way to put it. I mentioned the previous film had really good rotoscoping. It was fluid, it was consistent, it did not distract you from the diegesis, it helped get you immersed in it. Well, this is the opposite. The man who knew 75 languages, I think I'm starting to lose one of those languages, by the way. The man who did is not very good. Let me explain. I mentioned that it's not entirely rotoscoped, and that's because it is occasionally interspersed with live-action environmental shots, you know, to give it a realistic, grounded dimension. But the retraced live-action actors interacting with the photographic environment is already a bit distracting. That's probably one of the mistakes you would do if you were not familiar or fluent with the technique. Because you see, again, comparing it with Tehran Taboo, that film was entirely rotoscoped. Not just the people, but the environments as well. Now, granted, there was a really awkward CGI cat at some point in that film too, which was distracting, but for the most part, it was consistent, the animation and the rotoscoping. They were both consistent, not scattered, so to speak, and that's one of the problems that this other film has. The man who knew 75 languages, that is. Another problem is that there are certain moments in which it really is noticeable that they are not using rotoscoping or animation at all, and the character or any given character just turns into a still frame of a drawing that only is able to blink. Like so. Like the cheapest of anime productions in that sense. And then there are the background characters with their own stiltedness, their own barely there motions that again distracts you from the experience because your brain is trying to focus on one element, which is the rotoscoped animation, but it gets pulled apart, pulled away from that focus because you again are distracted by all of these details that don't work as a whole. And at the end of it, overall, this is a really dull film. Dull and uninteresting. It had the potential to be interesting. It's an unsatisfying biopic and a badly handled rotoscope or animation in general. 65 minutes, which is the length of it, felt like 137 minutes to just provide you with a completely random number there. Well, I guess that's about it. Alright, so what's next, you might be asking? I don't know. Dinner, maybe. Yes, that sounds about right. See you.